Hi everyone, welcome back to Demand Decoded. In this episode, we're going behind the scenes of a real product launch with a brand we all know and admire for their marketing, Cognism. And it's really interesting because I got an inside look at this product launch with Liam and some other of the gang at Cognism at a meetup a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago now, I suppose. And yeah, it was awesome. We got some amazing insights, some interesting learnings that I didn't expect too. And here Liam is bringing, the insights to us at Demand Decoded, which is great. So yeah, awesome to have Liam here, who is VP of Brand and Customer Marketing at Cognism, and we're going to break down the details within this product launch. So how they refined the ideal customer profile, built the product that actually solves a real problem that they identified, and most interesting probably to this audience is how they launched a demand gen campaign that actually delivered results. So yeah, awesome to have you here, Liam, and it was great to actually see you put the thought process behind this in person.
Yeah, no, great to be here. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of like dip into it and share some of our learnings and our process to what we did. And I mean, if anyone ever has any feedback or ideas as well, I'm always open to hearing them. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I suppose I should maybe like fanboy out for a minute, maybe, because I remember like it must have been a few years ago now where Alice was pretty active on LinkedIn talking about your shift from lead gen to demand gen. Then you guys already had a podcast, but it was more sales related. Then you like put in this mini series, which was then The Loop, but it was in this other podcast. And like I first started listening to that then. So then I was in I heard about like you and Fran, and Fran and Alice were all doing this at the time. And now The Loop is still going, right? Which you're sometimes hosting, but other team members are. So like I just think what you guys do and what you've done for a lot of marketers, like building in public, sharing your learnings, your mistakes, like being really honest with people publicly is just like so amazing. And I think we should thank you for those lessons because I've learned a lot.
Oh, that's so good. Like, so good to hear. We actually just changed the podcast again. So yeah, I think we started with Revenue Champions, and that was like our first test of a podcast. Alice was like to me, just go away and create a podcast because everyone was like raving about it then. So
yeah,
we were trying to, we wanted to create something, we didn't know where to go. And we've got like three very distinct personas really, the purchase Cognism being RevOps, marketing and sales. So we were like, we'll try and merge it all into one. I think the issue we found was we were like speaking to everyone and no one. And then the lead gen to demand gen thing was such a big topic at the time that it was, and we were going through the midst of it. It was such an easy thing to sort of talk about. So we then ended up creating the loop and working on and like building that out. I think as that topic started to like wane, then like the loop maybe became again a bit of like everything and nothing in like sort of marketing conversations. It's always like trying to find that next thing that like, okay, what you want to be known for, where you can really provide value. So now we've actually just changed the podcast to like, if you're subscribed to the Loop, you're still subscribed to it, but we changed it to Marketing Dilemmas, which is supposed to like focus a bit more on the guest and enable them to like come with a dilemma and then we can discuss it together. And the aim being there that I just sort of took inspiration from some of the best podcasts out there, like any old podcast. And they often are like have like a formulaic format, like about like off menu or like desert island discs. It's the same every time. The actual guest matters less because they don't have to come with some sort of insight. They answer the questions that are there. And I thought one thing that marketers will get out of it is just knowing that everyone's kind of there's like a little bit of like like a little bit of like a sick pleasure in kind of knowing that everyone's struggling with the same stuff. So it's like people from like, if you get big names that come forward and they're saying that they're struggling with the same things, it's actually really helpful and good to hear. And like the other half of it was also that then maybe we'd unearth different things that we could actually learn from at the same time. And if we're learning from it, then the audience definitely is. So yeah, I think think it's like a cool format at the moment, and sort of like, yeah, just sort of playing around with it. And also it works for us in that, again, you don't have to be some big thought leader to come on the podcast. We can get customers on, we can get opportunities on,
Yeah.
our own ICP coming in and talking about their own challenges, and then we can sort of like build that connection with them at the same time. So, but yeah, there's a bit of an evolution with the podcast. So then now I'm like fully hosting that one. So it's funny, they got this one today, and then I think I'm recording another webinar and then 3 other podcasts this week. So I'm like fully contented out.
I mean, you are literally becoming the face of Cognism, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I look at somebody's profile from Cognism, you're in the banner. You know,
Yeah.
whenever I look on Cognism's like company page on LinkedIn, you're, you know, at least 5 posts down, I'll see a video of Liam. You're hosting the podcast. Like, you are Mr. Cognism.
Yeah, I think I maybe took the brand role a bit too personally. Trying to make
Well, look, you're leading the charge, which is great. This podcast is brought to you by Blend. We're a B2B website and demand generation agency. We work with ambitious businesses just like yours to create and execute effective demand generation strategies that drive pipeline for your business. We also recognize that your website is the most important asset you have in marketing. So we specialize in building scalable websites on HubSpot that convert the demand that you've created. If you want to find out more about our services and see real results that we've generated for businesses, visit blendb2b.com. I suppose we should probably get into what we're actually chatting about today, which is Sales Companion. Because at the Demand Gen meetup, you gave us all some behind the scenes insight, I would say, of how you launched Sales Companion. And I think we probably don't need to get into all the details today, but there are certain things that I'd like to get into. But I think if you could first just kind of outline what Sales Companion is, like how you guys found this product in the end and why it came about, and then we'll actually get into the launch of the product, which I think is the meat.
Yeah, it's kind of in its name, in that Sales Companion is supposed to be like a sales, like an SDRs or an AE's best like a tool that like pops up straight away as soon as they log in and start their day. In the same way that traders kind of have this. In fact, I used to work for Thomson Reuters, so like an icon or something like that, where they are like pivotal to their role, and it's where they get all their news and stuff to actually like crack on. And within the Cognism product, obviously, like data and data quality is like a core, is like core value, core part of our brand and what we do and what we're focused on, especially like our strength in European data. But what we can also do is surface insights. But some of the insights, I suppose, in the traditional way that Cognism's the traditional Cognism product is like presented, like you have to go out digging for them. And actually, as a sales rep, you want those insights delivered to you exactly when you need them, with guidance to actually where you should be prospecting next. So that's what Sales Companion is, and like a more advanced Chrome extension that they can actually help guide a rep to their next best opportunity, but then provide them with the quality contact data that means they can actually go out and speak to the people that they need to speak to as well, and they can rely on that. So yeah, and then there's other parts as well that I think then appeal to the other sides of like the personas, and that is like, you know, as we move up market, that companies want to be able to control who their reps are reaching out to, and that it's not random acts of prospecting, it's prospecting with purpose and intelligence back behind it, and the ops team can set those parameters, set territories, enable people to take ownership of accounts, and actually like then Sales Companion can use that to actually make the best recommendations for who they should next reach out to be able to prospect an account efficiently. So that all came from like a lot of the learnings that we had when we did our sort of ICP research as well, and then like enabled us to actually work out the product that we needed to build today to meet the market that we wanted to get, and also like deliver a product that was of value to them, that they would get the most value out of, and then hopefully increase our gross retention rates as well.
Yeah, it was quite like an intentional play, right, to meet that upmarket demand. Because I remember you guys were saying that the Cognism product itself lends itself almost perfectly to kind of mid-market, almost SME style businesses that just want some contact data,
Mhm.
like it might even just be a one-off campaign. All they want is some contact data, but actually where they could get the most value from the product is by layering on top all of these other products and services that you offer too. And that's where Sales Companion comes in. Was that information then you mentioned doing customer research done upfront before the idea of Sales Companion even came around?
Yes, exactly. So it actually informed the idea of Sales Companions. Actually, the beginning of last year was when we started the ICP project, and then that was going to inform the product that we created. And in that like research, it was only like less than 10 years ago that everyone was buying data from lists, right? So you would go out, you go to a data broker. I remember using data brokers, and you get given like an Excel spreadsheet, and then you'd use that for your marketing campaigns, and it would plug the gaps that you have, and like reps would use it for phone numbers as well. So like a lot of those times those lists were like out of date by the time you got them. Records
Yeah.
were like rubbish. And so when we launched Cognism to begin with, it was like kind of in the era of the like Zoom Info and DiscoverOrg merged. It was like this idea that you could now get a platform and get access to data at any time. But then it's changed since then, because now there's multiple providers doing exactly the same thing. And actually access to data isn't the issue anymore. In fact, if anything, we've all got too much of it. It's like knowing what data to use. So and when. And yeah, I think there's always going to be a demand just for B2B data, but how do we differentiate ourselves as a provider? They're saying, oh, we don't just provide data, we provide actually intelligence as well alongside that data, and data that's actually going to get you in contact with the people that you care about, not just like volume of counts, which I think is easy to do as well. Like you could say you've got a huge volume of counts, but if they're all like decision makers, then you're not going to, no, they're not all decision makers, and they're not of like immediate use to a lot of people. Like we found that even in our own data set in that research, that it's like that it was 1% of our data was accessed most of the time, and that's because
Wow.
everyone is looking at the same people, and everyone wants to get the same people. And that's not to say that the rest of the data is useless. It's just to say that that data is the most important data, and that's where we need to really focus. So if we're serving data or contact intelligently to people, then that data needs to always be correct, because that's the data that people want, and that's where we're going to spend our time as well.
Yeah, that's insane, but almost not surprising because, when you think about who businesses ideally want to target, it's the decision makers, it's the C-suite, it's the VPs, it's the directors.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, that is the data that everyone's going after. All right, cool. I suppose the next step, once you identified that the product had a fit in the market already, well, I suppose it was the other way around. You identified the problem, created the solution, right? Can we just unpack what was next after that, like the actual go-to-market strategy? I kind of want to get into the messaging that was created, how you kind of got to that, how you were testing and iterating it, because I found that really interesting.
Yeah. So we built that. We built up. We started by like building a brand story first, I suppose, around what Cognism was and why it was, and what we were and what we were trying to achieve. So that was in the intelligence, quality, personalization, compliant. And then we wanted to like work like forward from there to some like get that into like messaging, what that means Sales Companion can do for you. And I suppose actually there was a little bit of it that was like, you can paint it now that it was like done in like a perfect creative process, but I think it was actually just a suggestion. We kind of accidentally went probably the wrong way, straight to the go-to-market, and we're like looking at ads, and we were like building out all of our product messaging around it, and we were struggling, I suppose, with the product messaging. I feel like we weren't happy with it. It looked a bit stale. With those brand themes, we couldn't quite get
Yeah.
across the value that we wanted to. And then one of the demand gen managers mentioned this idea of being a sales companion being a plus one, like your plus one, I suppose, that always turns up for you and like supports you, brings in and like saves you at the times when you need them. So then he started like building out this different messaging around like sort of like the plus one that never lets you down, the plus one that's always there, the plus one that always shows up. And then we realized that this was going to be like a great theme, then that we could actually run through that product messaging and like really backs up what Sales Companion is as that plus one. So then we started to thread that throughout all of the product messaging, and that was like became like the key part of the creative campaign that we ran. And the original like images that we came up with around that and everything was like based on sort of stock images, and then we thought we'd go out and like actually personalize them. That's when like we decided that we'd have me and Becky in the team to feature, and then we could by that way we're like humanizing it, personifying it with people from Cognism as well. And we also separately come up with like, I run these like quarterly creative days where we come up with some of our new creative concepts. I think they're getting more organized now, but at the time we were just sort of trying to come up with fun ways that we could demonstrate Sales Companion. And we came up with a separate idea at that time. I think we'd released Alice's Diary of a CMO, and there was a launch video with that where like Fran just pops up in the background in one moment of it, which and offers budget to Jamie who works there, and we all found it so funny. But at that point we thought, it'd be kind of funny if we could recreate some of those videos where someone pops up and they are Sales Companion. Obviously then, but just before we went to shoot those, we then came across the plus one theme, and then we were like, okay, so then we can personify Becky as Sales Companion, and that's kind of how it all came together. So it was actually a bit higgledy-piggledy in the end. I think now
it's
we're
like by accident, right? You stumbled across this just random idea, which ended up being the best idea you probably could have had.
Yeah, and I think actually from it, we've kind of realized that we like trying to now make those creative days a little bit more formulaic, a little bit more led by data, but like to land on those ideas, but in a timely order, so we're not going back, changing work that we've already done, quickly changing scripts and things like that, which was kind of where we were at. But it all landed in the end and kind of sort of came together.
The trouble is with those creative ideas, and when you try and force a creative idea out of somebody, if we said, okay, let's book a half an hour call this Thursday to discuss ideas for this, like all the ideas would be bad probably, and like most people wouldn't have any, because like the idea just comes at a random moment. It could be walking the dog, it could be in the shower. So like the idea of plus one probably came, on the toilet. Like it could have been like at any strange moment. So like, what are you planning on doing next time, or whenever you need that new creative idea to not kind of rely on a random moment, to try and make it a bit more formulaic, but allow for that creativity as well?
Yeah, so the way we run the creative days at the moment, so we've got one at the end of June, and previously what I would do is come in, I get the whiteboard out, I'd split it into 3 with yes, it's complicated, and no. Barely anything ends up in no because we're all British and we don't really want to insult anyone, but there's a lot that ends up in it's complicated, and everyone like just the simple thing of like writing. We'll come up with we're looking for like content themes for this or messaging themes for whatever we're running the creative day for, and everyone writes their own post-it notes and we go through them, and then eventually we land on something between. You got the whole team, nearly the whole team there, so it's like I think in any of those creative processes, it's best to have as many heads as possible, because something then clicks and then someone adds something else to it that then finalizes the idea. It always comes out with something a little bit random. But the change now that we're doing is we've got like almost like, I suppose it's like a pre-read ahead of that now, where we actually run through all of the data first. And then that gives like 2 weeks. So the data is supposed to then inform what we're going to do. So I think before, some of the issues were taking big swings. So there were things that didn't go exactly to plan with Sales Companion because it was a big swing. It was a big swing creative idea that was great for creativity, but maybe missed on performance. So looking at the performance data means that we sort of like control for some of that swing. And then by the time we've had 2 weeks, people come and the agenda's all written, people then can have those moments beforehand where they just sort of like, sometimes as I do, just sit up, bolt upright as soon as waking up going, oh my God, I've got the idea. And then you can like come prepared with those. Yeah, exactly. And like have those ideas when they've gone for like they're walking the dog or in the shower or something like that, and bring them to the meeting, and then we expand on them. So it's like there is no dumb idea. It's like all ideas are on the table, because there might be one that starts off a little bit ridiculous, and then we actually work out that it's the right one. So.
Well, I'm interested to know what sort of data you bring to the start of those meetings, because you must have so much data on all of the content and assets you create. It'd be interesting to know what you whittle it down to the most important things that you share.
Yeah, so each team like is then responsible for like bringing certain bits. So there's obviously, and because the problem is there's competing priorities between them. So what might be great content doesn't perform from a performance point of view. So our paid media team come with the best performing assets on paid media, where that works. So then we also, because I think sometimes we actually create too many assets sometimes. Like I actually think as a team, we never have struggled with content production. Sometimes it's actually what we've struggled with is like where it best fits and its execution. Then sometimes it's actually a blessing to have too much content, but that's actually a bit more of where we've suffered with. So the paid team come forward with what's actually resonating on paid, what works on LinkedIn, what works on Meta, and like where we're seeing that performance. So it could be something and that's measured in two different ways because we have different sort of buckets on LinkedIn, depending whether we're aiming for reach or conversion. So looking at converting topics, looking at topics that are high engagement and then get us reach, so that we can be like, we're going to focus on those areas, messaging that's landing. The demand gen team link the dots there as well, but also with the PMM team, think about looking at what messaging is actually working specifically for mid-market. So they'll come with like, and there's a lot of like CRO testing on that. So where we're seeing benefits, what uplifts on the website have like made a difference, and where we want to focus our messaging. Sometimes the big creative idea is a great creative idea, but it doesn't actually say what we're doing, which is the bit that we need, that we've got to blend the fun and the boring. And then the content team will come forward with what's flying organically, what's working organically, what's driving traffic to the website at the moment, where we're seeing that work, what podcast episodes are working, like the topics, I suppose, that are actually leading the conversation, where we want to be like known for. And then hopefully between that, we'll be able to then figure out kind of some of our next step. Because some of this stuff as well, it's about redoing things rather than starting again. So we've created a lot of good content. So it's like working out what's worked from that. So that's the plan. And then we'll see if it helps like guide that creative process this time.
Well, I'll be interested to know how that goes, and hopefully you post about it on LinkedIn, because I imagine bringing that data up front would be useful for everybody to then bounce their ideas off of what they've just learned. So yeah, it's interesting. Getting back on topic, that was a great little segment though. Onto Sales Companion. So you had this amazing idea, which was the +1. The message testing and getting that message like composed in a way that would resonate with buyers was an interesting process I think you guys went through, using tools like Wynter, testing out different variations, etc., to land on the things that worked. Could you talk us through the process you went on there to land on the things that would actually work?
Yeah, so I mean, it goes back to the ICP project that we did, which we worked with a company called Chasm to do, and they sort of like paint this picture of that you need to like identify your head pin in the market, Head pin being like, if you picture sort of 10-pin bowling, you hit your head pin, everything else falls down and goes, and you land the rest of the market, because that head pin like talks about you so positively, that you start to bring in people from outside of it. So we started, I suppose, with on that project with like, we had to identify our crown jewels, like what are our key strengths in the space being, and for us that was like data quality, European data, and being like an expert in European data and having like really strong data quality in the market, especially for Europe. Then we went out and did what we then called a target market initiative, which was we interviewed key prospects, key customers, former customers as well, to find out exactly where they see how we help solve problems, and where we see the best fit. From identifying our crown jewels, that gave us the parameters of those people that we interviewed. So that means you start to define like what we called a straw man, which is like not just like, sorry,
these names are brilliant.
Yeah, that's so good. And it makes it sound so much more technical than it is. But the straw man being like not just like looking at your industries and your company size segment, but like looking at what else makes someone a good customer, what else actually drives high retention rates. And that, like for us, would be that they have European operations, and that they have like an advanced tech stack, maybe like Salesforce, HubSpot, which we integrate into, and that they have an advanced RevOps function. They're not, and I actually have like an SDR team as well. So sales headcount became like an important part of that. And then that enabled us to then go, when we spoke to them, to actually build an idea of what that product would look like to fit the needs that they had. So then we had to go take that to actually validate some of further what we'd found out. So we used a tool called user evidence to then survey our customers, and that validate, and that through that we were able to validate some of those findings. That I think it was like 70% of our customers believe that the right people, it's the biggest benefit of having a sales intelligence provider, like finding those right people. They continue to struggle with accurate CRM data. I think that was about 80%. And of our customer base, 70% of them, Europe was their most important region, which then validated some of that idea of what our crown jewels were, and who our straw man was as well. And then we took the same sort of like process of testing it to like the wider market using Wynter, and Wynter enables you to sort of survey and do market research of your ICP, so you can select the types of job titles and companies that you want to go after, and company size, and send them a survey, and they're like rewarded for it, to give us ideas on who to talk, like to give us their feedback on our questioning, and like the what we wanted to validate. And we found that 72% of respondents cited again that data quality was their biggest challenge, and that 80% agreed that the most important benefit of a sales intelligence provider is the ability to connect with the right people. So then we had both customers and prospects really backing what we were saying. We used Wynter again further when we were building out, like then later with the messaging, as you say, like and looking at the website. So we like built a website with all the messaging that we had ready to go for Sales Companion with the +1 idea, and you can just give them screenshots of the Figma files that you're going with, and ask for their feedback, and we sent that to then that core ICP that we defined on the Chasm project, and then they give quite brutal feedback some of the time as to whether your messaging is landing, whether they really understand what you're selling, whether it aligns with what we believe it is as well. So then we use that to sort of edit further that messaging to actually meet the expectations of the market.
Yeah, I mean, the upfront cost there that you spent on the market research, that you spent on, you know, landing page messaging tests, probably saved you a hell of a lot in the long run if you kind of went down the approach of testing ad variants to see, you know, which had the higher click-through rate or dwell time to, you know, resonate best. Like, you knew immediately which pain points were gonna resonate most with the market, which, like, you know, is, it's common sense when you think about it, but not many businesses actually go about product launches that way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could go further, and I think would would like us to. I think going forward is to actually do a smaller test of some of the creatives to begin with as
Mm.
well on paid, because again, that alignment of like the messaging that lands on your website and then aligning it with messaging that delivers in an ad that actually encourages someone to click through, and then also that it maps back to your website are like two different things. And I think that's something we found with some of the sales companion creatives, that maybe those two things didn't really link, and
Yeah.
people enjoyed the creative, but they didn't from that ad understand exactly what the problem was we were solving.
Yeah, because you showed some of the 80s arcade themes, which had, like, you know, the Pac-Man chasing the prospects, or, you know, I can't remember what exactly it was gobbling up, but gobbling up something. And, like, I thought on a visual creative level immediately, like, they looked fantastic. But I suppose when you actually dig into what the prospect is seeing, however many seconds, maybe like 1 second you have to actually tell them exactly what you do in the feed and how it will help them, maybe it took a bit too much time to figure out what that ad was trying to say. And I think you guys compared it to the ads that you ran afterwards, which was really, you know, just telling exactly kind of what the product did.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that was on the, so we created cheat code series alongside
That's
the
it.
launch. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was supposed to be kind of like our go-to-market series of how you can actually use Cognism to then solve very specific challenges. But I think we lean too heavily in on the creative idea of it being of the cheat codes, that we missed some of like the selling point
Yeah.
of what we how we were trying to solve it, and not being clear enough. Interestingly enough, like at the time I saw the creators and I was like, I really like them. I think I said that like I I like have some doubts whether they'll land with paid based on
Mm.
previous experience. But the only way you can test these things is actually by taking them to market, unfortunately. But like I think some of those things can be done in more controlled, limited tests. But as you know from that presentation, I think we got like 750 ads live in
Yeah.
one day, and it was sort of like pushed through quickly. So we had to do our learnings on the fly as well.
Yeah, well, I think we should talk a bit more about, you know, the content that went along with this uh, campaign, and kind of like the go-to-market strategy around the launch too. Because, you know, if you haven't seen it yet, Liam is the next up-and-coming Hollywood star, ultimately. Like, you know, the legendary video acts within this launch are just great. I love the fact that you spent so much budget on distribution rather than creating the content, because that, so you see so many brands polishing up video and polishing up assets for launching a particular campaign, and maybe spending a fraction of the cost on distribution, so nobody ever sees these like amazing new things, right? And you managed to kind of create this halfway house where the video still like looks professional, but it's like very authentic, let's
Yeah.
face it. You know, I'm not discrediting your acting career, but like, you know, you'll know Tom Cruise, right? um but yeah, I mean, talk us through what, like, why you took that particular approach to creating some of these assets, and yeah, what
Yeah. I
came.
think we've always had the sort of culture of then, and we have like an in-house video resource, and we had the culture of sort of like creating some of those videos internally. Uh there as also I've always that have conversations with LinkedIn. There's a lot of like insights from LinkedIn themselves that sort of authentic videos,
Yeah,
less polished videos often do better on platform, like as you would see shared on other social media platforms. Um, so we have like the means and the ability to do it. So then we focus the budget that we have on distribution instead, and create that content internally. I also resent the idea, which you see so many companies do, of probably spending like I God knows tens of thousands of pounds on some really polished video with a production agency, then it gets sort of posted on the company LinkedIn account. It's not actually really optimized in any way for paid, and they can't optimize it in the same way because that's not how it was built and recorded. So it gets like used once, gets a number of likes, and then it disappears. So the idea of like taking it internally is we have a bit of control over that. We humanize it by using people from Cognism as well, so that you create like hopefully a recognizable element between it. So like our content strategy is based around having key internal people focus for different pieces of content, so that the tie is between Cognism and that person as well. And then if they're like featured in the creatives as well, then we can like really start to like double down on that, because also insights from LinkedIn is that obviously people buy from people. They want to see the same, that, you know, they like to associate a person with a company as well. And all of that allows us to save money on the production side and then push that back into the distribution side, which is where we can then obviously really like get that reach, get it out there, get the message out. And I think, I personally don't think from the engagement we get from it that people are like super fussed whether it's a super polished video or not. Obviously there's times and moments when you want to have that high production video, but like if you really want to scale video, which I think is becoming the predominant content format on LinkedIn, then you have to do a mixture of both. And that's like real user generated content, bits more scrappy content, like video content, on top of then some of the more polished stuff that you can do as well.
Yeah, it's a hard balancing act, isn't it? Because you want people to take you seriously as a business, and especially I imagine it's a tricky one for you going up market, because typically you'd think, maybe they want something a bit more corporate-y, like we want them to take us seriously, so we don't want to be too silly, but at the same time, like people on LinkedIn now enjoy humor, like they enjoy the authentic nature of something. They don't want to be sold to, especially, so the ad almost and the video content needs to not feel like an ad, but like it's okay if it is at the same time, if it's a bit jokey. It's a weird dynamic right now, I think, when it comes to content. But yeah, especially with the upmarket shift is an interesting one.
Yeah, I think that's one I'm still getting my head around, because I like to reject the idea that as you move up market, people want you to be more serious, more stiff, because I like to believe that people like and like behind the company there's always a person buying, and therefore, and you know, they might be on like at work, and then when they go home they're on reels and TikTok watching all manner of content, and do they really, what they then engage with, do they really look at it and like see differently between their business life and their like personal life? That bit I'm unsure of. I do think there's obviously the part of being taken seriously and like as a company that you're able to deliver on what you promise, and maybe that part is relevant. So I think what we try and do is like, if we're now releasing something, a product launch or a content launch, and we have like an engagement element to it, which might be more fun content, that it's backed with all of the serious content that's needed to say, yeah, that's obviously a bit of fun, but like here's what you can expect and what we'll deliver and why we're up to the job, and all the customers that kind of support us with that. So I think it's a balancing act. I think you have to, in my mind, you have to have both, because if you go down the pure serious route, then you just don't get the engagement to begin with, and you don't get your message out.
Yeah, you don't get the attention, and like marketing is a game of attention, and it feels like that's even more true now than it ever has been, because it's hard to get that attention and people are fighting for it probably more than they have done before. Yeah, I suppose my initial thought did go to the serious route. Like once you have that attention, a Fortune 500 company, like an enterprise company, will need to, de-risk that purchase and understand that, you can trust, your supplier ultimately.
Yeah. So I think you have to have all of that side to back it. When people are on LinkedIn, they're on for a purpose. Like either with like reps probably doing like actually prospecting on there, using it for work. Marketers might be coming on but marketers are sometimes like senior sales leaders will be coming on there to learn. And I think to capture that attention and in that feed, you need to either be providing real value, real or like entertainment. But then after that point, you need to be able to deliver the actual message and the trust in the brand that you're actually, that they can de-risk it and they can see that it's not just all jokey content. There's actually a serious product behind it as well. So yeah, that is definitely the balancing act for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'd love to get into the distribution side of things now, because you spoke at the Demand Gen event around some like influencer marketing campaigns that you had going, like the huge internal launch that you were doing as well, like the ability to rally everyone around. And yeah, just some like more interesting plays. You don't hear a lot of people talk about influencer marketing in reality. There's a lot of chatter, I would say, around how it can be used, and influencer marketing, it's the next thing in B2B after it's been in B2C. Like, there's murmurs around it, but I feel like you don't really hear of many brands executing it quite well. But do you think it went well during the launch?
Yeah, I mean, we always try and back now, or any launch we do, whether it's a content or product launch, using influencers as well, using internal influencers we've created, plus an external influencer network. For Sales Companion itself, we used a company called Fluencer to actually help us select some of those influencers, and then also work with them and actually manage the relationship to get them to post. And some of those like posts then like got like insane engagement and actually able to like reach, I suppose, more of our ICP in like a different personal way. And the influencers go away and they take your brief of what you're actually launching and then write and do those posts themselves. We started to make use of influencers like probably 2 years ago. We worked started off by having like what we called like a brand advocate at the time, and like an ongoing contract. We worked with Ryan Razor to begin with, who did like our sales like content, and worked with him as like a subject matter expert, and then also promoting for his channel. And then we worked after Ryan with Morgan Ingram, and we've still done a lot of work with Morgan. So this was like, and then when we launched the Diary of a CMO, we did the same in like sending people books, I think, and getting them to post about the book themselves, and that was like hugely successful. Like in the end, I think Stephen Bartlett commented on Alice's post, and that's what really like blew up.
There you go.
But back then, actually, you got more of external influencers. A lot of people were willing to post free of charge. There was less of this monetization of it, like as it's grown. So now we like find that you have to put budget behind it. But like for us, it's always like been a great way to completely take over LinkedIn if you want to do it, and actually drive some of that organic traffic, and get yourself backed by like people that they respect and like content they enjoy. So one of the influencers we used was like Tom Boston, and he's got like a very particular style. Lots of people follow him for his style, and like he creates this very specific video for it. So yeah, like it's always part of our strategy now. And when we're thinking about a launch, we always think about what we're going to do with influencers, both internally and externally as well.
Yeah, it is so cool to see it in action. And just to break it down a little bit, so you obviously have this idea for the launch. You basically provide a brief to, a third-party company who might manage those relationships for you, or to the influencer themselves. They then record their own or produce their own content around that brief, like with some unique creativity in there. Of course, it can't be too scripted. And then that's just one time, or there's like multiple pieces rolled out across a period?
Yeah, so and then we'll like approve it, sign it off, and then we have like the launch date for them. And then we just keep those people kind of like on like a retainer. So it's not that like a retainer that as in you sort of like you just keep them on record, and then we can go back to them for other launches. And you have like an agreed if you're doing it one-to-one, you have an agreed price for posting, or like, and for those launches. And then if you're working with the third party, then they can manage that for you as well. And then you can put your budget to it. So kind of starts to work similar to like how you'd manage a paid campaign, but just with like a little bit more planning and organization in it as well. And I think the second part of your question was around our internal launch, actually, which I probably should answer as well.
Well, yeah, we can get on to that. I suppose you just mentioned paid, and I haven't got this question written down, but here's a dilemma for you. If you could only choose one to either launch the product again, but only have influencers and internal influencers, or only have paid ad budget, which one would you use? Totally hypothetical, I know.
Well, if it was between the difference between our paid ad budget and the influence budget, then I'd take the paid ad budget. However, if I was in a small company and I didn't have much budget, then I would go down the organic route.
Well, let's say it's the same budget, right? Because I imagine your paid ad budget was like ridiculously more expensive than the influencer budget. But you can take that entire budget, but you can only use it on either influencers or paid ads.
I think we'd probably struggle to spend it then. I think for delivery, you're going to always get further with paid. And in fact, part of the paid part as well is then the posts that then the influencers create, we then pay promote afterwards. Which is what LinkedIn is pushing people to do. Like, I always think about it as you go on Instagram and you have your For You section. The organic reach on LinkedIn is really limited. They have monetized the For You section basically by saying that you can have it randomly pop up in feed, but you have to pay for that post to be promoted. So that's basically what they've done. So the two end up going like hand in hand. So I probably would still stick with the paid media side because that's where you're going to get your reach. But the best performing ads always come from what we call that thought leadership bucket, when they're actually like promoted.
Actual thought leader ads on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that kind of marries up with what a lot of people are seeing, I think, from the results from thought leader ads, because the nature of them, how authentic they look, I think, is kind of the leading format right now on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and exactly back to the sort of people buy from people idea. So yeah, for sure.
The internal launch then, yeah, it's an interesting one because you managed to rally the entire business almost round for launch day, maybe even for a period after, to do like an almighty takeover of LinkedIn. So did that take quite a lot of planning? What went on behind the scenes to do that?
Yeah, I think that was actually the most successful internal launch we've done in terms of posting, and definitely something we want to replicate. So we just planned a launch party internally. It really didn't cost much. We just got some balloons. We got some like cupcakes with like Becky and myself on them. We just built up some hype around it, showed the launch video, the marketing asset. Really, I think with sales, it's always like, and our CRO always says this, you've got to lead with the what's in it for us message. We had, so he led the charge on that. We had our chief product officer talking through, and VP of PMM talking through the vision, why we're doing it. So really like drum up sort of that excitement for it. And obviously then a few drinks as well. And then we then launched like this media pack with it. And encouraged the posting and really like drove it then, saying, so they gave them all the assets that we had, plus banners for their LinkedIn and things to update. And it just really drove it. So like, I think when we got our first few, like the marketing team really led with it. We made sure the whole team was in the office. So if anyone had any questions about posting, they could. And it just had a huge success because then everyone was posting those videos. And I think it's just because we were able to build that excitement, and we did that like across the international offices. We did like almost like Eurovision style thing where each of the offices were like introducing themselves, because we had it on a big screen in the main like kitchen area. Yeah.
Did the UK get any votes?
No, biggest region, we were right at the bottom again. But yeah, so yeah, I think it it was just about trying to like actually extend that hype and get everyone involved. I think some of the mistakes you make before is like you launch something, you do something completely virtually, or don't have that, and don't build enough hype around it. You drop all the assets in a Slack,
Oh, yeah.
or on an email, and just everyone ignores it, and they don't get to see the value of the hype that they can create as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Was the coffee van on launch day as well? Because that was
Yes.
interesting. That was for passers-by and anyone in the Shard as well, right?
Yeah. So then we did the coffee van with I think the +1 to fuel your day. And that was like another way of getting people in the office heights in our own,
Yeah.
like in Cognism, come in, get your free coffee, make them feel like it was a special day, but also like a sort of like little guerrilla move of like getting some of the other companies in the like the Shard where we are to like get to know us in around London Bridge. So like a sort of branding effort alongside it, which was actually, yeah, just kind of like a fun, exciting play that we could do. And actually, those things are always surprisingly not as expensive as you think.
Yeah, and there was some bikes maybe with branding and like just some cool elements that you wouldn't usually expect.
Yeah, so we rolled that into we were into Forester Wave, so we then branded some pedicabs as well
That's
around
it, yeah.
Forester Wave as well, and that was like about 2 weeks after the launch. So then we're always trying to sort of layer in each of the launches then across the different things that we've got going on and try and make use of the events in the same way. So yeah.
Yeah, really cool. All right, I'm just conscious of time and I want us to get onto some other things. But have I missed any like core things there in terms of the launch and distribution that were like really noticeable at the time?
I don't think so, actually. I think that they're probably the big ones. Yeah.
All right, cool. In terms of learnings, you shared a few of us at the meetup. Like 750 ads, for example, is a lot to launch in one day. You're going to have mistakes and things crop up. But were there any big surprises, like, big mistakes and things that happened on launch day and beyond?
Yeah, I think there were the like small ones, I think, which we showed on the day is like we had like video ads that maybe didn't have a thumbnail to begin with. So that like hampered their engagement, which you would immediately expect. There's other small things like some of the stuff that we created videos for organically don't start with the Cognizant brand. And when you have them on page, you need that. Actually, an organic can damage organic reach if you have your brand flash up too quickly because people don't see it as authentic. But like when it comes to paid, you need to have the immediate brand recognition. So we sort of changed the process there. So like paid ads have the brand logo flash up in the corner and then disappear again, so that they have that instant recognition. We actually did like we worked with System One alongside LinkedIn to actually find that out, that sometimes we get recall at the end when our logo was showed, but if we didn't have it at the beginning, then sometimes that would affect recall at the end. And that was something that we kind of missed in this campaign. And then also, I think there was obviously the cheat codes messaging that wasn't specific enough about what that cheat code was going to solve. So that sort of like that didn't perform as well as we wanted. So we had to redo those creatives to do so. And we also found with the sales companion messaging that it didn't always land exactly with what people like. So they always got high engagement rate because I think the creative idea was good, but then actually the drop off we were seeing on the landing pages was huge. And it's because people weren't like clear on what they were clicking through to. The two messagings didn't align heavily enough. I don't think those ads said what Sales Companion does. They highlighted a fun creative concept, but not exactly what we did. So then been going back trying to rework those so that we can actually demonstrate alongside the +1 messaging like what we do at the same time. Like obviously I think some of the other parts of it works, like probably the recognize like that people start to be recognizable, the ads themselves are fun, but like in hindsight, if I was to read that messaging myself in my LinkedIn feed, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's a sales intelligence tool and this is what I'm clicking through to. The thing is though, there's the balance again to be found, because it can't just be message from click-through rate on that and like then conversions from those ads, because when we look at like disco calls and people coming through, like people all aware of the campaign and they want to find out about it. We had a huge spike in traffic after all of the organic play. So there's an element that's like Sales Companion as an idea was out there, whether it was well served enough that people were turning up to demo requests knowing what Sales Companion was, I think was the bit that was potentially missed. So it's not against the creative content. Again, it's more about how we think about how we message it on paid. And we found, like, for example, the videos did well because they have the product explained on the end of them. So you get the Sales Companion process, and then you get like quite an explanation on the product. But the specific image ads that we had maybe like missed the mark there, and they were the ones that then didn't perform as well as people want them to. So I think trying to get that in to our ads is like, it was a key learning.
Yeah, really interesting. Just 2 quick fire things then before we wrap up. If you could do one thing differently next time, like you're cloning everything, but you can only do one thing differently, what would you do different?
I think we would. I think we'd need to start more methodically. So I think we sometimes in the speed that we rolled it out, we like jumped back and forth from different items, which means that there was a lot of repeat work. So I think really we started methodically with the ICP and then brand story, and then kind of like lost our way a bit. And I think really we'd want to then go back to what we're doing now, looking at the data, deciding on the distribution part before we decided on the messaging. So it's almost like we know what we want to distribute, and then we create the messaging to match. To me, that would be the way that we'd go about it, where maybe we got carried away with the creative concept first and then just tried to distribute it. And I think that switch would be the key thing that would definitely change.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And what worked really well that you would definitely do again?
I think creating all of our own content around it and humanizing it with people that worked really well. And I think that would be like a rinse and repeat. And I also think having some element of like emotional connection in that. So I think the humor part plays like a huge part in that. Whether like time will tell, and we'll learn whether like humor is is as effective in moving about market. Like I really feel like that question's unanswered for me. But like there needs to be some emotional element still to it that actually captures people's attention, because we saw that bit worked for engagement. So
yeah, buyers like are human and buy with emotion, right? I think we forget that buyers don't live and breathe this funnel, and they buy on logic because they want this feature. Like that feature is solving a problem which is a pain to them, which is emotional. Like it's all to do with emotion and like how we act as human nature ultimately.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. So I think that's when we get all the best brand recall. That's when we get all the best engagement, when we like make someone feel something of anything.
For sure. All right, cool. Well, let's wrap it up there. We've got 1 minute to go. But yeah, Liam, it was great to have you on. I've been meaning to ask somebody from Cognism to come on this podcast for ages, because I am a bit of a fanboy, not gonna lie. And yeah, like it's been awesome to have you on. And yeah, hopefully see you at the next Demand Gen meetup. But yeah, been awesome having you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Dan. Yeah, great to chat.
Cool. And yeah, we'll see everyone next time on Demand Decoded.